Okay, everybody, how are you doing? My name is Kyle, and welcome to the Conservative Take. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about a new topic we're bringing on to the channel, and we're going to introduce you to a fabulous woman. Her name is Nicole Kaufman. She is a therapist, clinical therapist. I'll let you hear from her what her credentials are, and they are fantastic in terms of what she's done and what she can do. And I'll let her speak to you on that. And so before I even get into that, if you like what we do on this channel, we take pop culture and politics and filter to you in a conservative manner, then please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and share with your friends. And so with that being said, I'm going to bring on Miss Nicole Kaufman, and here she is.
Hey, Kyle, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely welcome. And I'm really excited about this show that we're doing.
I am as well. Can't wait to explore all the topics and put a little mental health spin on it and see where it goes. This will be really fun.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm going to say this to the audience first. I'm going to let the audience hear from you what you do, what you've done, and what your credentials are, because they should hear that, and what your passion is and what your goals are. But before I do that, I'm going to just say why I feel this is very important in my heart. Because every video I was doing for the past 6 months to a year has been involved somewhat dealing with mental health. In fact, even going back to the beginning of the channel, because to me, wokeness has a lot to do with that. And it wasn't until we did that video on how wokeness relates to mental health and talking to you off camera. We've known each other for several years, and it just seemed to fit. So with that being said, I'm going to give you the floor and just tell the audience about yourself and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, I'm really excited to be here. Currently, I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I am in private practice here in North Carolina. I've been in private practice for about 5 years. I did my graduate work really within the last 5 years. I haven't always been a counselor. So I have had lots of different careers in my past, everything from sales. I sold books. I sold cars. I sold mortgages. I've sold all sorts of different items in different industries. I was also in education for a short time. I taught middle and high school. I have done all sorts of careers and ultimately came to the conclusion that I needed to be in business for myself. So I was also in real estate for a number of years, in addition to all of those. So being in business and being a solo practitioner has always been a passion of mine. And so with my private practice now, I really target very high functioning folks who are either business owners, professionals, real goal directed, action oriented people who know that there's something going on with them, either maybe a little anxiety, maybe a little depression, maybe a little perfectionism at play that's for whatever reason these people can't get out of their own way. And so I'm their therapist. And so I help people kind of level up and get to the next level in their already high functioning. A lot of people would look at these folks and say that nothing's wrong with them, but they think there is, and they know that something's not right and keeping them from being at the next level. So all that to say, that's when I decided to go into private practice. That's the niche that I wanted to get into. And just as a side note, I also noticed that my particular worldview on society, culture, et cetera, was really a lot different from what we normally see in the therapist and counseling space, and just a little bit more conservative, if you will. So I am cut from a different cloth, I think, from a lot of the therapists out there. And so on that note, I'm not everybody's flavor, but I'm definitely excited about the clientele that I serve and being able to take a little bit different perspective than what would be the traditional therapist take on mental health.
Well, that's fantastic. I thank you so much for that, because sometimes I feel that if I give advice going over into your field, I feel that I'm being irresponsible because I can't speak to it intelligently. And it's too important of a subject to just haphazardly or laissez-faire approach, give advice in a way that could hurt somebody, right? So I think having a professional on board and having you have your own show, which we're saying here, we're going to call this. We want to talk about your show, what we were calling it. I'll let you say what your vision and your passion, because all this is basically you.
Right. Right. Well, and so I am the right therapist. I am the therapist who has a more conservative take on what's happening in our world, what's happening in society. And so coming at today's issues and learning how to function in this new world that we seem to be in, from a standpoint of good mental health strategy, being able to make sense of what's going on when sometimes we're having to filter through a lot of conflicting messages and a lot of conflicting energies from people. I mean, even down to the point that some people are feeling, if they do happen to take a more conservative point of view in their families, people are feeling isolated. People are feeling ostracized. People are feeling othered because they aren't going with the current trend or the more woke mentality. And so I'm here to kind of shore that up for you in a little bit in a positive mental health kind of way. So that would be my vision as far as going forward. Also, I'd like to, or I will talk about, relationship issues, narcissism, for instance. That's a really hot topic that seems to come up around some of our political figures and whatnot here lately. So really being able to define those in a clinically correct way. And I feel uncomfortable with the idea of giving advice, but what I hope to do is get people to start asking the right questions, both to themselves and being able to enter real, genuine dialogue with the people that are around them, so that we can kind of, start to talk again and not quite feel so isolated, because I feel like that's where a lot of people are finding themselves right now.
And I'm glad you brought that part of it up. And by the way, I didn't tell her to say the conservative take on that.
Oh, well. I'll look at my check later.
But I love the fact that you mentioned that, because we're giving our conservative take on this. And unfortunately, that's not really welcome in society as much anymore, at least not in the mainstream, even though I feel we're in the majority. But to your point, we're made to feel isolated, to think that we're not in the majority. And I think that makes us feel even more minuscule and lonely, and the fact that we're being gaslit and all of that. So, but I just want to talk on your last point there. You mentioned about that. And, because to me personally, I think, feeling that we are, isolated, feeling that we don't have a say, it has an effect on our psyche, right? And so I kind of want to talk about something that's kind of hot in the topic here. And that's something called mass formation psychosis. I got that right. We did a video with Antonio Brown, the Pittsburgh Steelers player. He's now Tampa Bay player, or former Tampa Bay player. He got removed from the team. And not speaking on him so much, but people are talking about this term, mass formation psychosis. Do you know anything about this and what this is? Is this new? What's going on?
It's really not a new term. It is, or a new phenomena. The phenomena is, and I'll go ahead and formally define it from a clinical perspective. I know we've got a lot of pundits out there who are giving their interpretation of what they think it is. But according to Matthias Desmet, who's the professor of clinical psychology at Ghent University in Belgium, there are 4 basic conditions that lead to a population ending up willingly sacrificing their freedom. Okay. And so we have seen other populations in history willingly sacrifice their freedom, but it didn't happen, overnight. There were certain societal conditions that needed to be met. And it's basically kind of a groupthink the mass formation, meaning the mass formation of a population. Psychosis, thinking that, okay, I'm just going to willingly give this up or give up a portion of my freedom, thinking that they're going to get something in return, that if we just feed the alligator a little bit, it won't come for us. But what we're seeing, though, is that when we do that, we can't outrun that alligator a lot of times. And we do end up giving up more and more and more and more. And that's what scares us, I think, all of us as a populace.
I was just in Everglades in Florida for my vacation this past Christmas, and we were actually around a lot of alligators. And my son and I went on one of those boat rides. I guess it's they're called something. Whatever. They're flat boats. They have like a big fan.
A little propeller behind them. Airboats. Airboats.
There you go. Super cool. They can do like the little glide thing because they're flat. They can do that little, that drifting you see on like Fast and the Furious.
Absolutely.
So we're doing that, whatever. But getting to my point, we got to this little island and we get off there, and the first thing we see when we get off there is this huge alligator. And he's just chilling, right? He got his mouth open, whatever. And the guy's kind of like poking him and prodding him, trying to get him out of the way. And I'm like, you know what? What you just said there is we feed these guys just enough, and then they get into a frenzy, and then they become, really, really quick and come after you. So to your point, do you think people even notice what's happening with this bit by bit stuff, kind of like the frog being boiled slowly? Or, and this maybe get a little deep here, if at what point do they find it, they feel that it is happening, but then they just go into a point of either denial, or do they go into panic, or do they just keep on going? And does that add to any of the mental issues that are going on?
Well, so people, especially in the United States, I think we've been socially conditioned to, work as a team. We're going to get through this together, right? We are an individualistic society in general, but especially since the pandemic has reared its head, the edict has kind of been, well, if we all get vaccinated, then things will be better. Right? Just 2 weeks to slow the spread. And as long as you do what you're supposed to, then everything will be okay. And we went along with that for a while. And I think people genuinely believe that if we did XYZ thing, Americans are great at following directions, right? So, we love to follow directions, especially if we think we're doing, the right thing, if we are on the right side of this. And so what actually happens is that we keep going and we keep going and we keep going. And now that 2 years has passed, we've had plenty of time to gather data and really look at whether the data is informing policy. And for the educated part of our populace, we're really now looking at the data and saying, okay, well, is the data supporting what we're doing? And for a lot of us over the last couple of years, we didn't see that support. So, we bristled against it. We didn't wear masks because we didn't Lysol our groceries. We weren't having our 2-year-olds run around in surgical masks because the data didn't support doing that. But what happened, oddly enough, was that then those of us who decided that the data didn't support the policy, we were then demonized for that, right? We were told that, gosh, if you don't do that, if you're silent about that, then that's violence, right? If you're not going to do that, then you want grandma to die. You have ulterior motives. So it has really made people second guess their speech, second guess their thought processes, and almost into paralysis, right? And all of these edicts that you're not doing the right thing ever, you can never mask up enough, you can never sanitize enough. There's no end goal. And human beings don't do well without end goals. I mean, even in my therapy practice, we try to set goals. What do we want to accomplish here? And how will we know when we've done it? That how will we know part, we're still waiting to hear what that is with this whole pandemic and where we're at. How will we know when we're virtuous enough? How will we know when we're safe enough? How will we know? And nobody does. And so everybody's holding up their hands now going, you know what? I don't even care anymore. And that's where the depression is coming.
Wow. That was a fantastic answer. You hit it. I mean, that you said exactly what I want to say in that convoluted way I tried to say it. So much there to unpack, which is why you're going to have your own show here, because I mean, I could go on to what stood out the most there, what you said was, when are we virtuous enough? That to me is a very powerful statement, because you hear the term virtue signaling, basically saying, look, guys, I'm being virtuous because I'm going along with everything you just said there. And it plays into what you just said in terms of Americans we want to do what's right? And we want to be good people. And this, there's so much to unpack here, Nicole. I mean, I don't want to go into a rabbit trail here. This is the first show. I'm excited about this. Let's try and pull back a little bit here.
Okay.
So from your standpoint, in terms of what's going on, you're seeing this mass formation psychosis. Do you see this country coming under the umbrella of that? Yes, this is something that's going on, and then we're going to start pushing back on it because we see that as not being virtuous?
Well, the mass formation psychosis is really starting to set in a big way, right? And we're seeing the effects of that. So the first condition that has been met in order for this condition to manifest in this country is the lack of societal bonding. Okay, so we've been fragmented for years now. I mean, we started being fragmented right after George Floyd, when we had, all these mass riots, and, either you were on the side of George Floyd or you weren't. And if you weren't, then you were othered, and, but it was okay to protest if that was unsafe, all these double standards that were in place at the time. So that condition, that fragmenting of society, has absolutely been met as far as contributing to this condition manifesting. The second condition is met when the majority of people view their lives as being without purpose or meaning. We have gone 2 years of being locked down, of having joblessness on the rise, of, jobs being from home. We aren't even interacting with colleagues anymore, right? We're just zooming ourselves into oblivion. But when you find your life is without meaning or purpose, and it's, it's Groundhog Day, we're doing this one more day, right? I can't tell you the number of people who are coming into my office and they're like, I'm just blah. I can't get motivated. If I had a dime for every time I heard that in session in the last 2 years, it would blow your mind. People are losing their motivation because nothing's fun anymore. I can't go outside, or I can't go in public without wearing a mask. I can't go to, I went out the other night myself to a local restaurant here, and I don't know about you, but I can't, it's really hard for me to understand people when they're talking through a mask, especially wait staff and stuff. So he asked me, do I want some coffee or something? And I'm like, oh, sure. He was like, well, which kind? And I'm like, I can't even. So our communication with people with these masks on, it has so diminished, right? And so people don't feel connected anymore. And that's part of that meaning and that purpose in life. Our friendships and our human to human contact has been so diminished and fragmented, right? That it's taking people to a really dark place. This is why you're seeing the overdoses. This is why alcohol consumption and sales are up 150% year over year. This is why the teenage suicide rate is beginning to skyrocket, okay? People are not finding daily life very fun anymore, right? And especially in some of these blue states that have these huge lockdown policies, They are voting with their feet. We're seeing a mass exodus from places like Chicago, San Francisco, and they're coming to South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida is being inundated with people moving there. So people are attracted to just naturally. I think we're hardwired for freedom. I really do. And they're going to go where it's free. And they're going to go where, they have some choice. And a lot of these blue states, they don't have choice. They feel like they don't have choices anymore. And they're gonna do something about it. Moving is productive. Drinking is not productive, right? So that is the second condition that I do believe is beginning to be met. And I keep telling people something really good needs to happen. Something like really awesome needs to, I don't know what that is, but we need to see something good happen. Societally, culturally. I think Spider-Man is the last good movie to come out that people just loved. And it made over $1 billion. People are hungry for entertainment. They want to see something good. And the triumph of good over evil, it's no wonder that people are seeing that movie 2, 3, 4 times. We're hungry for it because what we're seeing in our daily lives is not checking that box right now.
That's fantastic. Let me say a couple things first before I forget. I will talk about a situation where I got a hug from someone at a bar a few weeks ago. I used to go to this bar all the time back in the day before the pandemic. And I went in there, do karaoke because they weren't having masks then. And I saw the old bartender there, and we had talked for many, many hours prior. And then when the conversation was over, he actually gave me a hug. Okay. And I'm a dude, right? So I'm married and whatever, but you know what I'm saying. But it felt good, amazing, because I hadn't had contact with someone other than my wife and my kids in like 2 years. Yeah. The first time. I never had really given it much consideration at that point. I could tell he felt it too because he was like, down and out. And he wasn't feeling good. So, and then the second thing is you mentioned about New York, blue states. Isn't it interesting how the Statue of Liberty is there? Yearning to breathe free. You said people are they will seek out freedom. Mm-hmm. Isn't it amazing or ironic or sad that people are leaving the Statue of Liberty to come to places outside of it, even though the Statue of Liberty was there for the purpose of bringing people to this country who are looking for freedom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, all we have to do is look at our southern border right now to see how many people are pouring into this country. They're not coming here to be masked up and locked down. They are coming here en masse because they believe that this is a free country and a free society. And our borders are being absolutely overrun for that exact reason. So, it's odd that it seems like everybody else understands the concept of freedom, but we're somehow moving toward giving up our own as Americans. It's a very odd dichotomy of what's happening right now in society, and really that kind of push-pull situation almost does meet the third tenet of this mass formation psychosis manifestation, which is basically free-floating anxiety. If you're, if you look at mental health right now, the people pouring into mental health offices, I am overrun with clients. I have job security for the rest of forever, and most mental health places are overrun. There's not enough hours in the day to see clients. And so that's my hope here too, is that I can maybe help folks who can't get in to see real folks here. I'm not giving therapy over YouTube, but being able to help people be able to manage all of this a little bit better. And maybe YouTube is the way to reach more people that way. But these folks having free-floating anxiety, we're just operating at a high kind of tap dancing on a trip line type of waiting for something else to happen that is not sustainable for the long term. We can't stay in this heightened state for the rest of forever. It will not work. And what happens is and I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but what happens is that this free floating anxiety makes people irritable. And that's why you're seeing the increased violence, increased aggression. All right. So these crime rates that we're seeing, everybody's like, I just don't understand how all these, why we're getting all of this aggression and these crime rates skyrocketing. All of these things, lack of meaning, lack of purpose, frustration, free floating anxiety, people are getting mad. Okay. And they're getting aggressive. You're seeing it in the hallways at school. You're seeing it for the smash and grabs, all the violence and the murder rates that are increasing. People are upset. And all of these things kind of culminate into this violence and aggression. And that's what you saw on the football field, because, let's face it, football is a bit of an aggressive sport, but that kid just popped. He'd had enough. He just couldn't do it anymore. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of people. They're having just real breakdowns here. This is serious. And, this is really serious. So the aggression and the violence that we're seeing too, the fourth tenet of this mass formation psychosis, unless we can get a handle on our crime rate and law enforcement in this country, we're going to have a problem. And we're already seeing it in these big blue cities, Chicago for one, New York City for other, Seattle, Portland, all of these places where this violence is off the charts. This is not happenstance. This is very much a part of this mass formation psychosis.
Absolutely incredible. I want to step back to what you just said, but I want to just one more point that you mentioned about Spider-Man. I hadn't seen the movie yet because I'm so jaded in terms of the whole Marvel MCU doing what they did. And I believe this movie is great. And because when I've heard it doesn't involve any of that wokeism stuff in here. It's just good versus evil. And I would love to have you back on the show. I don't have time to even get into this, but about Star Wars. There's a show I was only going to do about Star Wars, about how behind the scenes it's been revealed that they were trying to bring down the patriarchy. They're trying to bring down Luke Skywalker, who is the main hero of the show. And that's the reason why the new series came out and undermined everything that we loved about Star Wars, because there was a group within Star Wars that was trying to take it down. And then that was actually being countermanded by the Favreau crew. And there's a big civil war going on in Star Wars. So I want to talk to you about that one day in the future, but it involves this whole thing you just mentioned. And so, but the point is that we do need to have something where we can all come together and unite under something, either the flag or sports, which is one of the reasons why we do the national anthem, is because we can all come together before we buy our beer and, popcorn and everything else, because both sides hate each other because they're opposite sides, but yet we come together under the flag because that brings us together and puts us in a better mood to buy more stuff. So we don't have those kind of things anymore. Do you see anything right now that we have that can bring us together at this moment right now? Because you said without that, we're going to have a big problem.
Well, and so we're waiting, right? Now we're in the midst of Omicron, so we're waiting for that to die down. We're waiting for this president to say that he has this virus under control, like we could ever say we had the virus under control. I have to say, what we call in therapy when the actual therapist is living in real time with the client, we call that a parallel experience. I'm experiencing this just like you are. I keep waiting for something awesome to happen. And what I say is that I try and pull back and not wait for my environment to show me something awesome, as in wait for the economy to turn around, or wait for prices to improve, or wait for groceries not to cost so much. I'm not going to wait around for that. I'm going to make things happen in my own personal environment. My son recently was signed up for the Air Force. He will be going to basic training next September. In my life, that is something awesome. Okay. So I have something awesome in my son that I'm looking forward to for him, with him. I think it's going to be a great fit for him moving forward in his life. and, strengthening my own relationships, creating my own opportunities. What are some goals that I want to pursue this year, both personally and professionally? Looking at those things and trying to come up with something to look forward to. I'm hoping to get some new certifications this year. I'm obviously looking forward to being the right therapist here with you, Kyle, as part of the Conservative Take. And so I'm creating my own opportunities and my own awesome things that I can point to and say, yeah, that's working for me. While there might be chaos all over the place, maybe I can point to this thing and say, yeah, my life is going pretty okay, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep, going back to this as my touchstone rather than the negativity that, frankly, is, as much as I love watching news and getting my fair share of current events, there's not a lot of positive stuff. So I have to really govern myself in terms of when to turn off the news, because I can get in a really negative space really quickly. And that's not healthy for anybody, including me.
Well, that's very transparent, and you never hear about a therapist saying that they're going through stuff. And I'm sure you have your own counselors, your own mentors that you go to as well, because we forget that these people are humans, and we dump all of our stuff on people of your profession. And I know it's got to be a load. So, but I know one thing that I'm looking forward to, and that's our next show, because I just think. We just talked about this for how long have we been talking? We did a show before this about 2 weeks ago, and we didn't actually put that on air because we were going to feel our way through. But I think this is a better show. But I'm going to make that available to people who are members of this channel, who are paid members, just so you can see whatever. If that's okay with you, Nicole, I'll just make it available for people behind the paywall if you like. Because the reason why I'm saying that's because we covered so much then and now that I am in disbelief of how much stuff that we can talk about and how much brokenness we have in this country. And so I just can't wait to have you back, Nicole.
I appreciate that. And yeah, we run a fine line between keeping it light or keeping it, mental health focused, and then being able to get in a really kind of ho-hum state about it, right? But we can make sense out of it. So making sense out of it helps us understand better, and once we understand better, we can do better. So I'm here for it. I'm excited about our next show, and can't wait to get going.
Well, perfect. So can you let everyone know how they can get a hold of you in your profession and also on social media?
Absolutely. My private practice is called High Performance Counseling. So if you put in to Google High Performance Counseling Greensboro, my private practice will come right up. I do both in-person and Zoom sessions. And I've got a very lightly trafficked website. Just because therapists are not usually tech people, but that's how to get in touch with me, and feel free to contact.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. And I think this will probably be a weekly thing. We're not quite sure yet, but comment below if you have any questions or just your thoughts on all this, any topics you'd like to see going forward. No promises, but I'm sure Nicole will make a decision on that. And also all the links that she mentioned before, the article that she mentioned just then, I think is fantastic, will be in the links below as well. And on our website, there'll be a link to her stuff on our website. We're going to create a whole section for her on theconservativetake.com. So we're bringing her on full board because I think this is so needed. And I have finally someone I can bounce things off of, because I don't want to say the wrong thing to the wrong people at the wrong time. So that's my take on all of this. And I'll give you the last word, Nicole, and I'll let you close this out.
Well, I thought about having the last word today, and I thought, what would I tell people to do? And I think what you said earlier, Kyle, about your hug, in order for a hug to have actual therapeutic benefits, you have to hug for about 30 seconds. So find somebody in your life that you can hug for 30 seconds. What that will do for you, your brain will release endorphins and serotonin and all the feel-good hormones. Oxytocin is that bonding hormone, and it will actually make you feel better both mentally and physically. So go out there and try and find somebody to hug for at least 30 seconds today.
Absolutely fantastic. And what's interesting is that hug that I gave that guy at the bar was actually about 30 seconds. So anyway, if you guys like what we do with this channel, we take pop culture and politics and filter TV in a conservative manner, then please check out some more videos that we have for you right